Hello and welcome to In the District. Our guest today is someone who is very familiar to most people in New York City. I am talking about former Bronx Borough President and current City Commissioner for Housing, Preservation and Development, Adolfo Carrion, Jr. Stay with us for a conversation about his work as HPD Commissioner, his thoughts about the state of housing in the city, and the next steps for housing accessibility and affordability as we move forward. I am Javier E. Gomez. Commissioner Carrion, thank you for joining us.
Javier, it's great to be with you once again.
We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your Bronx origins, your family, growing up, your childhood.
Wow. We got here in 1969. I don't know if too many people know, I was born in Williamsburg. I was born at St. Vincent's Hospital on 12th Street and 7th Avenue in Manhattan, but we were living on South 2nd Street in Williamsburg.
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn. I often say not the Williamsburg of today. It was a different place, but when at the age of 8, we moved to the Bronx. We bought a house on a dead-end street in the Northeast Bronx for $28,000. And the magic of that story is that my parents got here in 1950 and 52, and in less than one generation, they entered the middle class, they became homeowners, and they were able to do it because of affordable housing, because they found housing where they could save a little money so that they could save for a down payment, and then with the help of the New York City Housing Authority's rent pricing, and with the help of the federal government's FHA mortgage program, that allowed people, young families with children, to only put down 3% of a down payment on the purchase of a home and become a homeowner. So this has been my life story, the whole thing, and it's ending up being Commissioner of Housing, something I never planned, but something that I think you know we've lived. We've lived the struggle of advocacy and bringing attention to these issues to ensure that we create a city of opportunity. And so we are the beneficiaries, the Carrion family. We're the beneficiaries of smart investment in new Americans and new arrivals to New York City. We came here, my parents didn't speak a lick of English. And in less than one generation, before we grew up, they were already homeowners.
They were coming from Puerto Rico.
And they were coming from Puerto Rico. So immigrants in quotes, obviously. There's a lot of political history there that we can discuss on another show. But then what happens? We all become homeowners. The 4 children from Adolfo and Elisa all become homeowners, working professionals, contributing to society, and we want to repeat that story over and over and over again.
Growing up, what were some of the lessons that led you to dedicate your life to public service?
So, you know, my father, we just drove past the Christian church, John 3:16 on Westchester Avenue in the South Bronx, and my father was interim pastor there. I come from a family where service was the profession, where helping others was the commitment. It was really about, you know, community and helping people and lifting people up. You can dress it in religion, but it is ultimately about helping your fellow human being. And those seeds, those values, they carried me through life. I mean, I went to school. I was a lifeguard. I was a camp counselor. You know, I was a school teacher. You know, I got involved in city planning, all because I was concerned about what was society and its future going to look like. You know, how could I contribute something to improve the collective lot? And it comes from my parents. They gave me those values.
Housing, Preservation and Development is one of the most vital agencies in the city. I mean, without it, the city will probably collapse as we know it. Can you give me an overview about what the agency is and what does it do?
So in the name Preservation and Development is obviously the story. It's all about housing preservation, maintaining the housing stock that we have, which is 2 million plus apartments out there that exist where New Yorkers live. Most New Yorkers live in apartment houses. And so what we do is we build new And every year, about half of the work that we do is new construction. And we don't build it ourselves. This is a public-private partnership, like the building we're sitting in today where the BronxNet new studios are. This is an HPD-financed project that had community facility and commercial space, and it has affordable housing above, sitting in the South Bronx, which transformed the South Bronx. I mean, we are literally in the new South Bronx. This is a different place than 20 years ago, than when you and I were working together at the Bronx Borough President's office. These kinds of investments, they happen all over the city. They're powerfully transformative because they take places where there is no opportunity, where there might be, like in this, literally this corner right here where we're sitting, a vacant lot for 20, 25 years, and now you've got economic activity, you've got working families, you've got small businesses operating out of retail spaces, you've got kids growing up in an environment that gives them a sense of dignity and respect and honor about who they are as human beings, you've got schools next door. This is the formula for success. And so what we do as essentially a community development agency and a community planning agency, we make these critical investments in new construction, in preservation of housing. We try to preserve its affordability, so we finance deals that continue affordability for 10, 20, 30, 40 years into the future. These are commitments we make with the private sector. And we also take city-owned property and transform it into housing. So we have a lot of land that we still own. You know, just HPD alone has about 800 properties. Some of them tiny, some of them significant, like in the Far Rockaway area. And we invite the development community to join us, give us their ideas, and then together we finance these deals. It's complicated. It involves the federal government. It involves tax credits, it involves the banking community, it involves major capital investments by the city of New York. And I'll take a moment to take a victory lap here because when Mayor Adams comes in, he says, I'm gonna make the biggest investment in housing in New York City history, and he does. In excess of $20 billion went into housing for a 10-year period, and a commitment to build 500,000 units of housing because our economy depends on it. We have to house New Yorkers. We have to house the workforce. We have to house the families like mine that come here looking for opportunity and are able to then make contributions to the American enterprise. And so it's exciting work. And then we do the not so fun part, which everybody knows about. We have an army of inspectors. But what we do is we protect tenants where they live. So lead, heat and hot water, other safety concerns that people have, we enforce the law. And many of your viewers probably know, every once in a while, if an owner violates the law, abuses their tenants, takes advantage of people, we have the force of law where we can take their building, give it to an administrator, and in some extreme cases, and I know the people, some folks saw it on the news, put the owner in prison, put the owner in jail. There's an owner that is still at Rikers Island today because in Washington Heights he was abusing the relationship that he had with his tenants and not providing basic services. That is intolerable. So we have an army of inspectors that goes out there. So I encourage people, and I'll take this as a commercial break for the city of New York and say, call 311. You know, it sounds corny, and then you get on the phone and you're like, and you wait for the operator to get on, but guess what? As soon as that person answers the phone, that call is getting recorded. Everything is getting documented. The people in those buildings in Washington Heights that will now live in beautiful buildings that are going to be restored, they were calling 311 every day. And of course, those complaints get to us as an agency and we have to send out inspectors, and eventually we fix the problem.
Adolfo, I served as your deputy press secretary when you were Bronx Borough president, so I know you are a reformer by instinct. So when were you appointed HPD commissioner, and what changes have you brought to the agency?
So the mayor was elected in 2021, and we started our administration in 2022. We're in year 3. I started on February 7th of 2022, and I got appointed in January. The announcement happened in January. When I got there, COVID had devastated the staff. Many people had unfortunately perished, even in the agency. We have an agency of 2,500, 2,600 people. So you could imagine. People were working from home. People were still wearing masks when I came in. We had to rebuild the agency. We had to hire people. Our numbers plummeted in terms of production of housing. So when I came in, I said, look, folks, we're hitting restart. We built up the team. In the 2 years and now we're moving into the 3rd that I have been commissioner, we have broken every record in the history of HPD for new construction, for preservation, for housing formerly homeless families in our buildings, for creating supportive housing for people with special needs, whether it's mental health issues or substance abuse issues. We have broken every record. Last year, the year before, it was about 27,000 units of housing that we financed. This past year, almost the same number. So we've raised the bar. Now people are expecting us to continue to perform this way. And knock on wood, I think we're on track to have yet another record year of production. And the team at HPD is amazing. I'm very fortunate to have dedicated New Yorkers who understand their mission. They're very straightforward about what they need to do. They're going to house people. They're going to make sure tenants are protected and make sure that we continue to build housing. The biggest challenge, and I think you suggested that, the biggest challenge we face is this affordability crisis. People are leaving New York. We lost 200,000 black families over the last 10 years. They went out to the suburbs, they went to Jersey, they went to Florida, they went to Georgia. They're going to other places because they're being priced out of here because we don't have enough supply. You've heard the governor talk about it because you're plugged into that universe. You've heard the mayor talk about it. We have a 1.4% vacancy rate. That's the availability of apartments right now that you can go out into the market and rent. 1.4% vacancy. That means that if you're a working guy or gal here, a young family, and you need a $1,500, $1,700 a month apartment, your chances are near zero to find it. Near zero. We cannot continue like this. And so our charge now, and this is why we're advancing this city of yes for housing opportunity. And if folks can take anything away from this, I hope folks are able to see this show before the city council votes, because we need the city council to step up and say, let's reform the zoning to allow more construction of housing everywhere in New York City.
Zoning and reform is something I definitely love to look into.
Yes.
We will continue our conversation with HPD Commissioner Adolfo Carrion Jr. right after the break.
Only 57% of New York City high school students are college ready by their senior year. "55% of high school graduates either have no plans to attend college or are uncertain that they will ever attend. "34% of young adults don't go to college because they can't afford it. Discover what's possible. BronxNet's education programs, internships, and opportunities help engage and inspire Bronx youth and beyond to pursue their passions. Be a part of the BronxNet family. Whether you're interested in our shows, joining a class, or donating to support our mission, visit BronxNet.org to learn more.
Welcome back. We are in the district. We continue our conversation with former Bronx Borough President and current HPD Commissioner Adolfo Carrion Jr. Adolfo, before the break, you were talking about reform and changes to address New York City's current housing challenges. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is it that has to happen, and how can we find solutions?
So we have something called the zoning code that basically is the permission slip to build in New York City, and it gives you the limits of what you can do. We have not changed that zoning code since 1961. And we have a vacancy rate in New York City of 1.4%, the lowest since 1968. There's a little coincidence there. In order for us to continue to be a city of opportunity and a city that's competitive, where you come, and you come from anywhere on the planet, and you look at New York City, I mean, you walk the streets, the world is here, right? The world will continue to be here if we are able to house the workforce that creates this place of opportunity in the global city. Right now, we are paralyzed. We have created 800,000 jobs in about a decade and 200,000 units of housing. The mismatch is gigantic. People don't have a place to live. So they're running off to the suburbs. We need to keep them here. We need to keep our tax base here. We need to keep our schools filled. We need to keep our stores filled. That engine needs to keep going. So we need to reform the zoning code, and it's before the city council right now. We're the final negotiations where we are going to have an opportunity to basically raise the ceiling of what can happen all over the city. Can we do accessory dwelling units in your backyard, in your garage, in your basement, in your attic, and allow for grandma to move in, or your son and daughter to come back from college and have an apartment and a little privacy separate from the family? Families growing, young families. Can we convert office buildings to residential? Can we convert commercial buildings to residential? We know that there's tremendous opportunity and high vacancy rates. Can we build taller in central business districts and around rail stations and transportation nodes? These are all things that we need to do. And so this challenge is before the city council. While that happens, we're doing our work to finance more housing. And we're getting the laws that are required for us to do the work we do from New York State and the resources from the federal government. If those things line up, then there will be an unleashing of tremendous potential in this city over the next generation, and it will continue to be a great place.
Adolfo, and in terms of affordability, is there anything that can be done? We know gentrification is still an issue. Affordability remains a massive situation.
The affordability crisis continues. Part of the problem is lack of supply. If you look at any American city and any market, if you increase the supply of housing, price comes down. It's just the laws of gravity, right? It's the laws of the marketplace. So one, we need to increase the supply. The other thing we're doing, more than 90% of the housing that we finance goes to extremely low-income families, low-income families, families with no income. And then we have the support of Section 8 vouchers and rental assistance. All of that together allows us to reach those that are very hard to reach, that are the poorest or the lowest income New Yorkers. But the notion here is to give them the dignity and the places to live where they can start to climb the social and economic ladder as well.
In terms of achievements, you've mentioned that you've doubled the good records for the agency. Anything else that sticks to mind as an achievement or accomplishment while in office? And also, what would you like to accomplish during your tenure?
So in addition to the rental housing that we create, which is an immense amount, it's not enough. So one of the great accomplishments that we have succeeded in is getting the laws from the state of New York that allow us to build more housing in more places. That's one key thing. We were able to bring back a tax incentive that had expired. We created a tax incentive that deepens affordability for New Yorkers, so now we're able to build housing in high-cost areas for low-income families and give people fair housing choice, the ability to live where they want to live. You know, a lot of people are stuck in neighborhoods for generations. They often cannot imagine themselves outside of that neighborhood in another neighborhood. Everybody's aspirational. Everybody wants change. Everybody wants growth. We are giving them that opportunity. So now we have families living in Long Island City facing the East River in luxury affordable housing, in mixed income housing, low income families. Those kids with the amenities they have and the life that they are now offered in these beautiful spaces, the future is very, very bright for them. And we want to continue to do that all over the city. And I'll close with this. We became homeowners in the 1960s, in the late 60s, as a family. I was a little bambino. We're all homeowners now. You know, I live on City Island, and I've lived there for 21 years. Before that, I owned a home in University Heights, in my council district, on 197th and University Avenue, near Lehman College. Before that, a co-op at Fordham Hill, on Fordham Road and Sedgwick Avenue. The idea of homeownership has to be something reachable for people. And so we want to advance more homeownership opportunities, whether it's co-ops, condos, standalone homes. And one of the things we're doing is expanding our down payment assistance program. We increased it from $40,000 to $100,000 for a family to go find their new home. And that, I think, is going to leave a beautiful signature at the end of our administration.
That's a very important point, Adolfo, because you mentioned tenant landlords, and everyone thinks that home ownership and being a landlord automatically makes you the bad person in the movie. But home ownership is at the very root of the American dream.
It is at the root of the dream.
And the stable communities.
Yes. Look, everybody comes here whichever way they got here. And the notion is, I'm going to own my place. I might even start a business. I'm going to get an education. I'm going to work. I'm going to get a better job. That's the DNA of what it is to be an American. It's not about, you know, the biological DNA. It's not about religion. It's not about language. It's not about nationality. It's not about race or gender or sexual preference or choice. It is about dreaming about a better life in the future. And so, you know, I tell my team all the time, we are community builders. We are people builders. The housing we do, which is a physical space, it's really about building a promise and an opportunity for future generations.
Now, Adolfo, I know you have a full plate according to this agenda that you've described to me, but people, when they see you, they always think of you as a council member, Bronx Borough President. Would you run for public office again after this is all done? I mean, I ask you because I know if I don't ask you, people are going to stop me on the street and they're going to go, what? You didn't ask him?
Look, you know, public service is in my bones. It's in my blood. It's what drives me. You know, I had a successful business for 11, 12 years. It was about building affordable housing anyway, you know. And I always say that you never say never to the opportunity to serve. And I never thought I would be sitting here with Javier as commissioner of the Housing Agency of New York. It was never in my plans. So it's really about being open to serve and open to new opportunities. And I remain open to new opportunities all the time.
Your relationship to BronxNet is very near and dear. You hosted the Spanish language public affairs program, Diálogo, that I have the humility to host for you these days. Oh. And you just toured the new studios here at La Central in the hub in the South Bronx and the education center. What are your thoughts about this, seeing the evolution of BronxNet over the last 30 years?
Wow. I mean, I remember walking into the basement studios at Lehman College, old, tired spaces, but a partnership with the City University of New York, who hosted BronxNet and believed that this is an important thing to do, to have a community conversation, a community-based news outlet, and a place of opportunity for young people to choose a career in communications in the public interest, which is just fantastic. And when I think of all the people that went through BronxNet and ended up on network TV and cable TV and our news people and are contributing to society in so many ways, what a phenomenal investment. And now to see this amazing studio in the South Bronx, the footprint has grown. It's a modern, beautiful space. It really gives me a lot of inspiration. You know, I was saying to Max Nabi that this has to be supported. This has to, continue. This has to grow. It's an important outlet. It's an important platform for community conversation and a platform for opportunity for the next generation.
Going back to your HPD commissioner hat, Adolfo, what are some of the areas that will be the focus for development in the Bronx these days?
So, there's communities in the Bronx that have not hosted new affordable housing. In the Northwest Bronx, in the North Central Bronx, in the Southeast Bronx, in the Eastern Bronx where I live. And there are opportunities for mixed income, home ownership, housing for older adults, housing for young people and young families. And I think with the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity as a platform, as the backdrop, we're going to be able to build housing in those areas of the Bronx and continue to grow this place. The Bronx is, in my estimation, and this may be a dangerous thing for me to say, but it's kind of the consummate New York City borough, because you see everything here. You go to Central Manhattan and you go to the ritzy areas and there's a lot of glitz, there's a lot of wealth. Here, you see the full array of the people who arrive in New York City with nothing and the people who are living in a mansion by the waterfront or up in the cliffs in Riverdale looking over the beautiful Hudson Valley because they've made it here in New York City and they've chosen to live in the Bronx and stay in the Bronx. That's a powerful story. That is a powerful story. I went from the housing projects to being on City Island, a big, beautiful house with my family, and the whole cycle, almost all of it happened in the beautiful Bronx.
Thank you, Adolfo, for this great conversation. I look forward to continuing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Javier.
And thanks, everyone, for watching. And remember, you can always watch this program anytime, anywhere on BronxNet.org and also on YouTube. You can also share it with others. Make sure to follow BronxNet on social media to keep informed about who will be our next guest in the district. I am Javier E. Gomez. Until next time.